10th. If it's the 11th, we're going to find out in a minute. Hold on. What is it? The date? I don't know. I think it's I went live without checking it. It's Tuesday. It's February. It's 2026. I believe it's the 10th. It could be the 11th. So I'm having an interesting experience here. Namely, I'm going to describe something to you. And if you're willing, I'm going to have you go through and do a little experiment with yourself. If you feel like adventuring. Hello, one person who joined my live audience. How are you today? Woo, got a person. So hold on. Oh my gosh. One of the YouTubers I watch posted a post online 4 days ago that she had a fever of 104.07, and I was like, go to the emergency room, please. At any rate. Okay, so here we are, the psychic vision. Oh, my one person left, the psychic vision goggles. What are they? Well, I'm going to tell you guys a story. There was this guy, and I didn't like him. Swim didn't like this guy, and it was one of these people that you know you don't like. Hold on. And you know you don't like how you feel when you're around them, but for some reason, when you get around them, you feel like shit, but you forget that it's like, oh yeah, that's just because I always feel shitty when I'm around them. And then you might think for a second that you're just randomly feeling like shit until you realize, hey, it's this person, right? Come on, everybody knows what I'm talking about, unless you're like 1 out of 5 people who I suspect has a reduced anterior cingulate cortex. If you have a reduced size anterior cingulate cortex, the things that I'm saying to you right now are not going to make sense. Because your anterior cingulate cortex is in charge of creating sympathetic feelings in people. So like, say that I go around someone and their nervous system is well developed and it's well regulated. Any sort of person with a normal anterior cingulate cortex, they're actually going to derive benefits from being around people with a well regulated nervous system. Conversely, if somebody's nervous system is completely shot or something bad is happening to someone, a person with a normal sized anterior cingulate cortex is also, and a normally functioning one, is also going to feel a corresponding feelings that some would maybe relate to empathy, but they actually have feelings in their physiology that would make them want to stop the other person from continuing to abuse this other person, perhaps even, or to get away from the situation. They might not even know why. But people who have a reduced size anterior cingulate cortex, if they hurt someone else physically or emotionally, or they're around someone who's being harmed, they do not experience the corresponding physiological distress that approximately 80% of people feel when they watch someone being bullied, victimized, etc. So 80% of people have a pretty much normal functioning anterior cingulate cortex. Someone out there is saying she's oversimplifying. Go look this anterior cingulate cortex up. Now, what you're going to find is that CIA book author Andrew Bustamante says that when he joined the CIA, okay, who knows that he's written this book because he puts it in his autobiography and they don't have a problem with him saying it. It's a lot like Steve Pieczenik. If someone has left the CIA and it's in their autobiography and the CIA is like, okay, then whatever they're saying, the CIA is allowing to be disclosed to the general public via that person. Whether they think it's their idea or not, whatever the ideas they wanted to express, there wasn't enough stuff in there that they wouldn't want the public to know that somebody said, no, you can't say this. Okay, so what do these guys say? Well, one of the things Andrew Bustamante says is that when you join the CIA, the first thing that they have you do is they have you go look at the general public, and they tell you 1 out of 5 of these people that you're looking at is not, they look like they're pro-social externally, but under the surface, they are what you would call antisocial. And they may either not feel any distress or feel some pleasure from a beneficial dopamine transfer were you or someone that you are supposed to be watching out for to be compromised and exploited. And that these people, the only thing that stops them from acting in ways that society, openly acting in ways that society would, shut them down for, put them on the Gutenberg trials or whatever, I don't know, is that they are trying to fit into society and function within society and only do their abuse and when they won't get caught, because the consequences legitimately keep them in check. But if they're ever separated from the social consequences from bad behavior, say if you're caught alone with them in a socially isolated situation, or if there's a major systemic oversight breakdown temporarily or something, these people could become potentially extremely dangerous to anyone, even yourself. And so Andrew Bustamante said that is the first thing the CIA teaches you, is that taught him, was as a field agent, was like, out of it, your mama taught you it's none of your business what other people think about you. Well, apparently if you join the CIA, they teach you the first thing is it is your business, and 1 out of 5 of them will mean you harm. 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5. Now, the Yale baby study is in the Yale Baby Lab. There is a special published by 60 Minutes called Our Babies Unlock the Secrets of Morality, a 60-minute special. You can look it up on YouTube. Karen Wynn is a researcher who's been published in the Journal of Nature and Science, and she and other researchers together have researched these babies, and what they found out with 3 to 6 month old babies who've never been abused. These are not abused children. Okay, these are well-adjusted, healthy little babies. And what they found is that 80% of babies approve when they watch puppet shows, and they vote with their eyes and eye contact, approve of pro-social limits and stuff like that. But that 1 out of 5 babies loves bullying, loves it. No abuse, no trauma, none of that shit. Born that way. Now, what the CIA is saying is, and they stayed that way, baby. And so, so what you're talking about is when people think you're going to go fix the government or you're going to go storm on Hollywood, the problem is most kids who get abused, are they getting abused by a stranger in Hollywood, the kids that you know, or people you know, or are they getting abused by your uncle who lives next door to you, who you already know is a piece of fucking shit? But it's so much easier for you to project it out there that the problem's out there in politics or in Hollywood, when the truth is, if there was going to be a system-wide change, it would take... Do you remember how Brutus got Caesar? He was his best friend. They practically lived in the same house together. He trusted him so much. And then, what did Brutus do? He got a bunch of other people on his side behind Caesar's back and found a way for them to have enough reward in joining him in it that they could never blame him for it. The only way that you would ever supposedly fix this, and I don't know that it would be a fix, because once you go into the crusading mindset, if you want to see what it's going to look like, go look at the French Revolution. Okay? That is a very good way for you to understand what this would look like. Because it is not going to be anybody storming Hollywood, and it's not going to be anybody storming politics. It is going to be the people that you grew up with, who you have known your entire life, have been fucking doing shit to the kids in your family. And like, what's the infrastructure going to look like after that? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking questions. What's the infrastructure going to look like after that? Basically, you'd have to have every single person in the world turn on their own family members that live in their own house at the same exact time. And then you just have to look at the aftermath and whether you really think that that will be better. If it's your own family, suddenly you're not going to want to lynch them. You're going to be like, let's put them in a deep sleep chamber that keeps them fresh while we and in a comfortable state while we figure out science because there's nothing to do with them. And the next thing you know, you're leading a revolution. And if you're a leader, just remember every time we don't need another hero, we don't need another way home. Every time you create a hero, you create like 10 unnecessary victims. Because the minute you're put in leadership, there's like a whole bunch of stuff published on it, but there's a book called The Army of Enablers, and it says that power actually changes your physiology so that you're unable to empathize with other people. So if you think you're going to get in power and help other people, it's a great idea, but once you have power, you are unable to do anything to benefit other people because your mirror neurons don't fire right anymore. So it's likely whatever you do would be worse than whatever's been going on if it was a complete system-wide collapse. I mean, unless you knew how to take over the system, have you been paying attention? I don't know. Okay, so do you want your psychic goggle visions? That's what we were supposed to be here for. So if you've ever had a guy, I met this guy one time and I hated the way I felt around him. And I started to develop an introject that was like trying to make it so I would just like, it was like I knew that I didn't like him, but when I would get around him, I would forget to check myself on it just for a second. And then I realized, right? But one of the things that helped was I was looking at this person on Facebook who I've never spoken to in real life. And I saw this guy, and all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? I put the guy's vision goggles on and saw this guy who lives in the same town as the other guy, the way he sees him. And I was like, oh my God, the way you see him is so obviously like, these are the things that I see, but I'm not allowed to say, that I have been trained to not allow my subconscious mind to let through to my conscious so I can feel that it's there, but I'm not allowed to say it. But when I put on the vision goggles of a man who's never been abused, never been I don't know if he's never been abused, but never trained to have to pretend to like someone they don't like as a code and doesn't feel any guilt for not doing it, you put on the other person's vision goggles and you look at the other person from the position of someone else and you're like, oh my God, and I don't even feel guilty about this. And I'm not even worried about my immortal soul. And so a really kind of weird trick is when you have someone who really bothers you, don't just look at them through your eyes. Pick out several people who you think that could stand against them besides yourself and put on that person's thinking and that person's mentality and look at them through that person's eyes. And because these other people may not have guilt for calling the truth what it is because they weren't trained lifelong. It's called channeling, but it'll train new neural networks in your own brain to not be controlled by fake guilt and shame.